Jesus showed us the kind of a life that we can live when He is the determiner of our existence, blessing, and happiness. Love your enemies, so I can continue to meet your every need, He would say. It's not the injustice against us that does the most harm, it's our own preoccupation with justice instead of grace. The great tragedy is not that people sin, it's that we sin against the remedy for sin.
Thanks for joining us on Life Journeys, a podcast about thriving through the worst pain that life brings. With global initiatives threatening big changes to our way of life, we're going to need to activate Jesus' words about mountain-moving faith. Words That Work is the ongoing series on Life Journeys that is rooted in releasing revelational words of faith that will work every time and with everyone. It's about moving the mountains that keep us from the presence and goodness of God. It's about defining our life purpose and identity through encountering Him until we have the power to move the obstacles that are destroying our liberty and hope.
Treating people how you want to be treated is evidence of faith. Those who are living this way are living their faith and may ask and receive according to Jesus' words in Luke 6. Today, I want to expose you to the ancient faith that moved mountains in the hearts of the original disciples. We have trouble forgiving those who hurt us. That's human nature, I guess. It's strange to us to love our enemies. It's totally foreign to bless those who persecute us. That's because our whole foundation of life rewards is based upon what men do to us, for us, and because of us. But here, Jesus is showing us that this kind of a life that we can live is a kind where He determines our existence and blessing and happiness. A police officer entered an apartment that she thought was hers, but she was on the wrong floor. When she saw a man in what she thought was her place, she drew her weapon and told him to freeze. He didn't, so she fired and killed him. An innocent man. She was convicted of murder and sentenced to 10 years in prison for her horrible mistake. At sentencing, the brother of the deceased took the stand for an impact statement and said, "I forgive you. I wish you no ill will and that you didn't have to go to jail. That's how my brother would have wanted it. I just hope that you will accept Christ." There was not a dry eye in the courtroom as he went to her and gave her a hug and wept with her. It was then that the judge came and gave her a hug as well, and a Bible. Social media exploded. How acceptable this was to them. They don't know that the only one who has the right to forgive and convey any mercy is the one who has the authority to judge. Anyone less does not carry the weight of forgiveness as the one who is offended and the one who has the right to punish. This is one example of the total difference between earth's values and those of heaven. That is the kingdom that Jesus preached. That is the only kingdom that will prevail against all else. Love your enemies. Bless them that curse you. Do good to them that hate you, and pray for them which despitefully use you and persecute you. That's the constitution of the kingdom of God that Jesus preached. So I ask myself, who am I to do anything to others but what God has done to me? Peter said, "Unto this you've been called." When Jesus was reviled, he reviled not, but committed himself to God. You see, grace was painted on a cross of great suffering, not on a plaque of reward. Jesus said, if you would have loved mercy, you would have judged righteously. It's not the injustice against us that does most of the harm. It's our own preoccupation with justice instead of grace that will absolutely destroy us from the inside out. I've said it before, the great tragedy of life is not that people sin. It's that we sin against the remedy for sin. Whenever we're raising our voices of discontent to another, we're announcing to heaven, hell, and others that we really think that we are better than someone else. To harbor bitterness because of perceived injustice is a bondage all of its own. It ensnares long after others have moved on. Heaven's answer to such things frees us from this bondage of needing other people to change. Jesus said, "Your reward is great in heaven. As he would that men should do to you, do you also to them likewise." In his mercy, the Bible says God is kind to the ungrateful and to the evil. Because of this, I realized God's on my side. He's for me. Why is that not enough? So that I also need anyone else to agree with me. If I'm having trouble loving the atheist or any other antagonist, it shows me my own deficiency of faith in the grace, provision, and presence of God. Loving my enemies is not intended to be a function of my strength, but God's. The Savior cries out, "Love your enemies because I'm giving you my life and the support of the throne of God. I didn't give you my life so that you could hate those that I died for. I will give you my power to do the impossible." I'm not the executioner of evil. I did not earn the right of judgment because I didn't endure the cross for all men, nor am I their maker. Only the one who has the right to judge me has the authority to forgive me. So if my enemy does not forgive me, it's of no consequence to me. To my enemy, "You didn't create me, nor did you give your life for my faults, so your judgment of me carries no weight." I therefore have no right to care what my enemy may think of me. If I do, I assign to him the rights that belong only to God and make myself an idolater. You see, what other people think of me really is none of my business. Why embrace a victim mentality and thereby admit that I am the subject or slave of any loss that matters? My reputation doesn't matter. Jesus said, "Woe unto you when all men speak well of you." There is no merit in the blind man denying the God he cannot see. Therefore, don't worry about his claims against you. Do unto others. It requires that I carefully remember what I was without Christ, so I do not condemn the enemy that he died for and make myself a transgressor. Take that cross pendant off your neck if you're not going to accept your calling to not revile and instead commit yourself to God. Your call is to display the same cross Christ died for you on. That's what activates holiness by faith and activates great faith. God requires me to love mercy. And I do when I extend grace to the criminal who has hurt someone else. But before me lies the challenge to love mercy when I have been slandered for doing good. After 40-plus years of ministry, it's become a permanent mark on my identity to be insulted, to be disrespected and reviled. And then, upon this wound which keeps getting cut open, I'm called to bear it as a badge of honor, when in the natural it feels like a pathway of shame. Love mercy. It requires learning how to be treated like Jesus was treated. No greater worthy man has been stomped into the ground than he. So, Lord, Show me how to love mercy when its price is another stripe laid upon an old wound. Teach me to embrace your life to the fullest and live near your throne of majesty. The more I esteem the presence of God and His glory upon my life, the easier it is to bear the weight of loving an enemy. Love is often painful, but it doesn't mean there's no love there when there's pain. Just the opposite is true. Because there's pain, it reveals love. And instead of cheap self-defense, which reveals selfishness and low self-respect, there is a willingness to bear the emotional pain. But since feelings come from our thought life all the time, I need to renew my mind on the words of life from above. I need to do it diligently and with specificity until God's presence begins to shine down. Don't ever think that loving one's enemies should always be easy and an emotionally delightful thing in any way. But know this about faith and mercy. Not loving our enemy is revealing that we still think we need something from them. But it feels like they're robbing it from us. We feel a loss because of them, so we tend to hate them instead of loving them. How important it is to realize that faith and not loving our enemies is an incompatible state. The two can exist together. So if I'm asking in faith and expecting to receive, my faith can take a great leap when I realize that it has enabled me to love the unlovely. That's a sign of an impending answer to prayer. Now, I want to close with a simple word of faith to encourage you. I heard this the other day on a social media post, and I don't know who the man was, or I'd give him a shout out here, but he was answering the question of why he thought Jesus healed the man whose ear Peter had cut off when the Romans came to take Jesus. He said if Peter would have been arrested for assaulting the high priest's servant, that would have been a capital charge by which he could have been put to death. But Jesus removed all evidence of the assault by healing the man's ear. What's so revealing in this act of Christ is that it demonstrates what Jesus has done for each of us, for the transgressions we have committed and the sentence of death that has been placed upon us. He has healed our hearts in the sight of God and removed all evidence that we have ever committed a crime. That's the kind of grace God has given us. That's the kind of trust we can have in Him, that whatever we have done to another or whatever has been done to us, Jesus Christ came to this earth to bring us a complete healing and restoration of everything that sin and Satan have taken from us. We are safe in the everlasting arms of God.
You can unlock the presence of God in your life. There are revelation principles that remove the mountains, keeping us from joy, hope, peace, and purpose when our world gets turned upside down. Look for these words that work with Pastor Hardika as he shares what has helped him when life got hard. And don't forget to check out his book, The Fortress and the Firebrand, available on Amazon and Barnes & Noble. Thanks for listening to Life Journeys. Find new episodes every Wednesday and Saturday.
Jesus showed us the kind of a life that we can live when He is the determiner of our existence, blessing, and happiness. Love your enemies, so I can continue to meet your every need, He would say. It's not the injustice against us that does the most harm. It's our own preoccupation with justice instead of grace. The great tragedy is not that people sin. It's that we sin against the remedy for sin.